For direct and inverse variation, direct variation came with the equation y equals ax, where a represents your constant of variation, and then for an inverse variation, what was different is now it's xy equals a, again where a equals your constant of variation. Alright, so let's take a look at actually seeing this being applied. Alright, so if you turn in your packet to page 51, we're going to take a look at number 1. Alright, and number 1 says, assume that y varies directly with x. So I know that means that I'm starting with the equation y equals ax. And then it says, if y is 24 when x is 3, find y when x is 4. So that means I have to find my constant of variation. So I'm going to plug in the information that I know, which is that y is 24. I'm trying to find my a value, but I know that my x value is 3. So I have 24 equals a times 3. So that means to solve for a, I'm going to divide by 3. So a equals 8. Alright, but then it says find y when x is 4. So that means I'm going to go back to my original y equals ax. And I'm going to plug in my new information that a is 8. And x is 4, so y equals 8 times 4, so y equals 32. Alright, now the difference between direct and inverse variation is just where you begin from. Alright, so if you turn to your packet on page 52, and you look at number 6, you have the same type of problem, except that it's saying that it's varying inversely. So that means I'm going to start with yx or xy equals a. And it says y equals 24 and x equals 12. Find y when x equals 24. So first I have to figure out what my constant of variation is. So if y is 24, I plug that in. If x is 12, I plug that in, and then I'm going to solve for a. So that means a equals 24 times 12, which is 288. So that's what my a value is. So now I want to go back and plug this in, that xy or yx equals a, and I want to find y when x equals negative 24. So I want to figure out what y is, so I don't know what that is, but what I do know is that x is negative 24, and I know that a is 288. So now I have a one-step equation to solve. To get y by itself, divide both sides by negative 24. So that means that y equals negative 12. Alright, or you can see a problem like number 3 on page 51 where you're given a table and you have to figure out, is this a direct or an inverse variation? Alright, so in order to figure that out, first I have to solve for a. And since I have to know what that constant is, that means I'm going to have to get it by itself. Now with an inverse variation, a is already by itself. Alright, but for my direct variation, it's not. So the way I get a by itself is since a and x are multiplied together, I'm going to divide by x on both sides. So a equals y over x. So what I have to figure out now is this relationship between x and y on my table. Does my constant a come from doing x times y, or y times x, or y divided by x? Alright, so on the top we'll look at y divided by x, and then on the bottom we'll look at x times y to see where my constant comes from. Alright, so if I look at this first pair, 8 and 5, I'm going to get 8 over 5. Alright, then if I look at this second pairing, y is 1 and x is 40, y over x is 1 over 40. Obviously, 8 over 5 is not equivalent to 1 over 40, so it's not going to be a direct variation. So now I want to figure out, is it an inverse variation? So that means I have to do x times y. So I do 5 times 8, which gives me 40. I do 40 times 1, which gives me 40. 2 times 20, which gives me 40. And negative 10 times negative 4, which gives me 40. So that means here that xy equals 40. Therefore, it is an inverse variation. If you look at this graphically, a direct variation must go through the origin, because remember, if I'm doing a direct variation, it's in the form y equals a times x. There's nothing here, there is no plus b, so it's like saying plus 0, which means it's going to go through the origin. So if I look at these three graphs, that means that this first one is not a direct variation because it does not go through the origin, but the second one is because it does go through the origin, and the third one is because it also goes through the origin.